everyone, Jessica here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm showing you how I made a birthday card for my dad. Now this card design is something that I don't normally do for cards. It has no stamps and no dies. I know, that's pretty surprising. But after a conversation with my dad about his birthday, I had this idea swimming around in my head. I didn't have the time to see if there was a stamp set that might have worked, so I decided to draw my own. Now, before you get worried that this will be an hour-long video of me coloring, don't worry, it isn't. I've left it in real time, but have short clips of sections so that you see the progress and coloring. What you are seeing is the line version. I left out the sketching and tracing parts because honestly, it just takes me so dang long. But I used my Cricut Bright Pad, which is awesome by the way, to trace this onto a piece of Nina Solar White in the 80-pound version. I'm using a less heavy version because it is lightweight, and in my opinion, Copics work a little better on it. So what I'm doing is creating a background with my Copic markers. I'm going to have this piece transition from red to orange to yellow. I'm not trying to get a perfect blend of color because the technique I want to show you for the Copic background will do a lot of the blending and hiding of imperfections anyways. I try to be one of those people who remember to set down the Copic cap in the camera view so that you can see what color I'm using. But for some reason, I need to grip that cap in my left hand while coloring with my right. Maybe I'm afraid my cat will come out of nowhere and steal it. Who knows, but I've got a death grip on that thing. Though I don't have a perfect shot of my Copic caps, I do almost always swatch my colors on a scrap piece of paper. I use a scrap piece of paper because Copics have a tendency to bleed through, and that way I don't have to clean my work mat after. Now I'm going to do the same with the orange. I go back and forth with the brush nib and chisel nib, and I also switch between the colors I'm trying to blend. I used a micron pen to do the line art, and though these work great with Copic markers, I see a little bit of smearing with the bottom lines around the boot, and a few smudges to the left of the art. That's okay. It will all work out in the end. I have all the supplies listed on my blog. Just follow the link in the description. I was having some difficulties with the yellow, and so I brought in another one to help. This one is a more deeper yellow. I first saw this technique on Baylee J's channel. She's a great Copic marker artist, and she does some of her backgrounds using alcohol. It's the same style as spritzing distress ink or oxide ink blended backgrounds with water. I splattered a lot of rubbing alcohol onto this, and once I got it to where I thought it looked good, I blotted with a paper towel. I let this dry a bit before I started coloring the image. I started by coloring in the stripes with a Copic marker, but stopped and used a micron pen instead. I'm going to use shades of gray for the jail suit. I first started with a cool gray color and then changed my mind. I went with warm grays instead. I have more color options with the warm grays. I'm also going to be using a Dick Blick brand alcohol marker. I have about 10 of this brand of marker and use them alongside my Copics a lot. I mainly have the gray colors in the Blick Studio line. They work pretty well, but the warm gray that I use is odd. It's almost a purplish gray. And the brush nibs on these ones are a little more flexible. They're not as stiff as the Copic marker brand. The Blick Studio gray is not as purplish on camera. If you look at the swatches on the top left, it's the one on the far right, just for an example. I'm going in with a colorless blender to push back some of the ink because the rubbing alcohol disperses the Copic ink and pushes it around. Some of it bled into the white. It's an easy fix though with the colorless blender. I'm using 3 different skin tones, using the ivory for a shadow, and then I fill in with the more pinker tones. I'm not being very detailed, adding a bit of shadow where I think the image would have a shadow. And then I just add a little bit of warm gray. I think it's warm or W0 to the mustache and blend out with W1. I just wanted to do very simple shading. It's a pretty busy background and there isn't a whole lot of detail to this image. that I drew out. So just keeping it simple, but adding in the details that I like to add in. Off camera, I do the words chance and get out of jail free. Again, this takes me a very long time, so I didn't add it in the video. My handwriting is still a work in progress, but trust me, it is better than what it was. On Monopoly get out of jail free cards, I did a quick search. There is a phrase that says, keep this card until needed or sold. And as a card maker, I thought it was funny and kind of a pun. So I wanted to add it in. I used a scrap piece of Nina and a T-roller to add lines so that the letters would be somewhat even. Then I wrote it on with a micron pen and erased my pencil marks. My first idea to put the strip down below the get out of jail free part, but instead I cut it up into 3 pieces and used it to cover part of the black ink that smudged on the left side of the piece. These little strips were easily attached with an ATG gun, and the tweezers, of course, helped to get everything straight. Here you can see the back part of the piece and all the ink that the rubbing alcohol pushed to the back. I'm attaching it to a piece of 8/2 size card base. You can see the practice and tracing pieces I did on the left. Those were my failures, I guess, my trials. I adhered the piece to a 8/2 size card base, and then I just trim it up with my paper trimmer to get all those overlap pieces off. It just gives it a cleaner look. I'm going to go through with a black rolled jelly pen and outline all the images. So the boot, the pant leg, the little action dashes. I also use the jelly roll pen for the words on the front of the card. That way they get a bit of a raised detail to them. This is a very flat card, so a little bit dimension adds a little bit of shine, just a little extra touch. After that, I just add a piece of orange cardstock and layer it with the sentiment piece to the inside of the card. I hope you enjoyed the process of this, and it was something a little different, but I found it a lot of fun to try out and see what happened. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already and like this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Meh, meh.